If you look at the heritage of the Huawei Mate series, one thing stands out. These are big, beastly, tank-like phones, and with enormous screens and huge batteries inside, they needed to be. The latest Mate phones have pivoted slightly though. Along with all the generational improvements that come in any new flagship, the Mate 10 packs all the technology you would expect from the series into two of Huawei's sleekest and most beautiful devices to date. I'm Alex from Android Central, and this is our first look at the Huawei Mate 10 and Mate 10 Pro. So we've got two phones here, a 5.9-inch Mate 10 with a normal-ish 16:9 aspect ratio, and a 6-inch Mate 10 Pro with a taller 18:9 display. Because we're dealing with two different aspect ratios here, the normal Mate 10 actually has the greater screen area of the two. Geometry is weird like that. Aside from the regular Mate 10 looking a little short and squat compared to the Pro, both phones are very similar in what they do and how they look. So let's get into the major differences between the two before we continue. The Mate 10 Pro gets you 6 gigs of RAM, up from 4, and 128 gigs of storage, up from 64. The Pro uses an OLED panel instead of the regular Mate 10's LCD, but at a lower resolution, Full HD Plus versus Quad HD. The Pro has IP67 water resistance, while the regular Mate 10 comes with the increasingly rare 3.5mm headphone jack. Oh, and the regular Mate 10 puts its fingerprint scanner on the front, whereas the Pro has its sensor around the back. And here's the big one. The US and UK will only get the Mate 10 Pro initially, not the regular model, so we're going to focus on the Pro for most of this hands-on preview. In any case, the core experience of using these two phones is basically identical. Even though both are still relatively large, the new Mate phones feel way more compact than previous years. At the same time, packing in the enormous 4000 mAh battery capacity we've come to appreciate in previous Mates, along with Huawei's proven supercharging technology. The big marketing shtick for them, so did the Mate 9. In any case, Huawei says it's up to 20 times faster than a CPU at things like image recognition and natural language translation. Huawei, and just about everyone else, is anticipating a trend towards AI in phone apps in the coming year. That's something we've already seen with services like Google Lens on the new Pixel phones. And with its NPU, Huawei says it's already ahead of the curve for the coming wave of AI apps. The NPU apparently helps with performance in the new EMUI 8 as well. The latest version of Huawei software skips versions 6 and 7 to keep parity with the Android version, which means, yeah, the Mate 10 runs Android Oreo out of the box. Not that you'd necessarily know it though. From a purely cosmetic perspective, EMUI 8 looks almost identical to the previous version 5.1, and that's perfectly fine. EMUI doesn't look horrible, but it doesn't look as sharp as vanilla of useful features. For instance, loading messages from notifications in a split view to avoid interrupting full-screen videos. In some apps, the phone's AI technology can intelligently upscale lower-res images. As for smaller tweaks, well, the stock launcher now has Google Feed integration, which is nice to see, and as always, EMUI is endlessly themable and customizable. The Mate line has always targeted business people who need a high-performance phone, and the Mate 10's new desktop mode plays into this. Effectively, this is Huawei's version of the Samsung DeX dock, only without the expensive proprietary dock to buy. It works over USB Type-C, so with the right connector you can just plug your Mate 10 into a monitor and keyboard and run apps on a bigger screen. The phone itself can even be used as a trackpad, which is a nice touch. Even with its many impressive additions, EMUI still looks and feels like EMUI. Most of the apps and icons still have this weird desktop OS kind of look to them, regardless of which theme you choose, and if that's not your cup of tea, then there's really not that much here in this new version to change your mind. But let's talk cameras, one area where Huawei and its partner Leica have been making huge progress over the past year. Once again, there are dual sensors around the back, a color 12-megapixel sensor, and a 20-megapixel monochrome shooter, only this time both are optically stabilized and using new, brighter f1.6 lenses. And that bodes really well for low-light photography, which has been Huawei's greatest area of weakness compared to Samsung, Google, and others. There's a new dual ISP which should help improve processing quality across the board, and AI scene detection which uses the phone's AI hardware to identify the top 14 shooting scenarios and adjust set. And say is that general image quality from the Mate 10 looks very promising. And Huawei's portrait mode and depth effects are better than ever, with live previews right in the camera app. That's just the tip of the iceberg for the Mate 10 series. We'll have more to say on both phones in our full review. The main takeaway for me right now is that getting all the power of a Huawei Mate device no longer means carrying around a giant brick of a phone in your pocket. The Mate 10, and in particular the Mate 10 Pro, which is the main model aimed at Western users, is both powerful and beautiful. There's no aesthetic compromise this time. And with Oreo on board, along with a really promising camera and AI-powered future-proofing, the Mate 10 looks like a legitimate competitor to the latest Android phones from Samsung and Google.